how are you? My name is Ytasha Womack. I have the pleasure of being the author of this book, Afrofuturism, The World of Black Sci-Fi and Fantasy Culture, and it actually sent me on a journey. And that journey was really a journey that took me deeper within myself to connect with concepts that I hadn't really put together as one before. And I soon discovered that I was an Afrofuturist and didn't realize I was an Afrofuturist. And my thought is that you're probably an Afrofuturist in many respects as well. What is Afrofuturism exactly? Afrofuturism is really, oh, this is interesting, the way it popped up here. Okay, so Afrofuturism is a way of looking at the future, but referencing black culture, using a black cultural lens. It is an intersection between the imagination. It is an intersection between the imagination and intersection between black culture, technology. It is a way of integrating mysticism and essentially helping people to reevaluate themselves, but also to connect with certain kind of artistic aesthetic. As an artistic aesthetic, it integrates music, literature, visual arts, film, dance. It is a tool for self-healing and liberation. It helps to use the imagination to transcend circumstances because ultimately, to imagine oneself into the future facilitates agency. And this is particularly significant in one respect for people of African descent because if I'm assuming many of you may be science fiction fans, it wasn't always common to have people of African descent in the future, and particularly taking or expressing certain levels of agency in those futures. And what that does is it starts to undermine the imagination. It starts to facilitate situations where people don't necessarily feel that they can have a role in the future or that they are supposed to be a part of that future. But on the other side, whether you identify as being a part of that culture or not, there are subconscious messages that are being communicated with respect to how you can shape a future and what you can reference, what's relevant and what's not, who has agency, who does not. And these are really kind of self-reflective spaces that Afrofuturism, just through starting just with the representational aspect of it, helps people to think about, maybe I haven't seen people of African descent in the future in an image, and why is that? So there are a lot of examples of Afrofuturism throughout our artistic lineage. There is Sun Ra. How many Sun Ra fans do I have here in the audience? Okay, fantastic. So Sun Ra is a jazz musician who came out of Birmingham and very much believed that he came to Earth from Saturn to help facilitate and help people to, he wanted to heal the Earth using music. He felt that music could help facilitate teleportation. He felt that the vibrations from music could transform the world. He was as much a musician as he was a philosopher. But one of the things that's perhaps most interesting about Sun Ra is the fact that he was wrestling with his own sense of alienation. And so to imagine himself as a person from another world helped him to not only create another kind of musical aesthetic, but it helped him to understand his relationship with the very planet that he was on, where he did not feel like he was welcome. And it also helped to underscore a sense of having a larger sense of purpose for him. So whether people want to say, well, this was a mythology that he believed because it was kind of interesting musically, I mean, that's one take. But on the other hand, it was also a way to help him reconcile with who he was and some of the challenges with respect to culture and race that he was socialized within. George Clinton is a popular reference with respect to Afrofuturism. I'm sure we have a lot of Funkadelic fans here. But ultimately, even if you get around the imagery itself, the music, the way that the music was actually used to create a sound for the future and to really use language, saying things like what's up is down and so forth. It helped to kind of disorient our sense of reality. And if you look at those lyrics beyond just the sense of, making you want to dance around, if you look at some of those lyrics, the concept of inverting reality puts people in a different space where you can start to look at things a little more critically, or maybe you can connect to yourself a little deeper. Octavia Butler is a common reference in Afrofuturism, and she is particularly exciting because she was an inspiration for many women. Because science fiction had issues with representation around women as well. And she often took the perspective of not the conqueror, but the person who was dealing with being at these very odd intersections in life. And how do you make difficult situations work for you? How do you survive? Survival was seen as triumph in many of her works. Alice Coltrane is a personal favorite of mine, but as a composer, she would bridge different musical forms that referenced Eastern wisdom and philosophy, and again, looking to use music as a healing agent. Grace Jones, I'm very excited about, of course, but again, we're talking about looking at images and people who are sort of challenging our notions and our idea around reality. But also our concept giving us a different sort of vision around what future looks can be. And of course, there's Janelle Monae, who we're excited about, and she references her android mythology within her stories. So Afrofuturism is not new. The term was created in the early 90s. It was coined by Mark Derry, and it was done so because there was this recognition that there are people of African descent who have always contributed to the ideas of the future and to the concepts around change and innovation, both artistically and philosophically. And of course, people are excited about the upcoming Black Panther project, which is really a testament, I think, to the newfound popularity of Afrofuturism and some of the enthusiasm that we now see online, where many Afrofuturist fans are connecting. So there's a burgeoning world of works where people are now actively using Afrofuturism. There's the Black Quantum Futurism piece. There's Octavia's Brood, which are a collection of science fiction stories which are written by activists. And the point is to help people truly connect with who they are and to want to project and move forward. So there are a couple differences between Afrofuturism and traditional science fiction, which I'll just show to you briefly. One is that there is a nonlinear sense of time where the future, the present, and the past are very much one. You can see that in this image by Kerry James Marshall. It's a depiction of a family using an African aesthetic, but they are in a space station. This image from Rayla 2212, which evokes some of the traditional African mask work, but also images from kind of a cyborg imagery from the future as well. There is a relationship between mysticism and technology. And there's a valuing of the feminine, the divine feminine concept, which again is looking at the relationship between intuition and the thinking nature. So ultimately, Afrofuturism is it's both an aesthetic, but it's a methodology. And this methodology is one that helps people to really champion their own imaginations. And I encourage people to look at Afrofuturism as a mode in that sense, to really look at what are you buying into as the future? What narratives, what images are you replaying in your mind? And are they coming from within you, or are they being projected upon you? Have you made decisions about agency? Do you feel you can input, you have input in the future? Do you feel that you can make a difference? And who or what do you associate with that? So ultimately, that's what Afrofuturism champions, and that's why I'm excited about it. Thank you.